everybody, and welcome to HardAssetsInvestor.com. I'm Mike Norman, your host. Today we have a special guest, Victor Sperandeo. He is Trader Vic here today on the program. Happy to have you, Vic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. I've heard a lot about you over the course of my career. You've been written about in the New Market Wizards book. A guy, you've been involved in the markets for a long time. You are very active in commodities. Tell us now, give us your overview now of how you see things in the markets, not just commodities, but overall, economically speaking as well.
Well, a great deal of my opinions stem from what governments are doing and what they're not doing. Okay. So let's put it this way, that I am of the opinion, and this has been written about by others in detail, that this administration is an anti-business administration, and they've come down too hard on regulations, and they've come down with what's called these unknowns, this uncertainty about what the cost is going to be for health care, which is now in the Supreme Court, and the and the Bush tax cuts, which are set to expire at the end of the year. So I have 20 people that work for me. And I ask those questions too. What is my cost going to be if I hire new people? What's business going to be like? So what I think applies to me here, I'm going to basically use as a broad generalization, is I think many businesses are holding back. So if there is a signal, and here comes the point, if there is a signal that this administration is going to lose its power, and that the Republicans, which is far more pro-growth, different style, but pro-growth, I would become very bullish on commodities and equities. At this point in time, equities have sort of made a potentially short-term high because it's come up 26.7%, and commodities are in a holding pattern waiting for inflation.
Okay, you say it's anti-business, the administration, yet we've seen a doubling in the stock market over the last 3 years. We've seen a lot of money directed at the financial sector, helping the financial sector to recover. We've seen, I don't think the administration has stood up very strongly in cases in Wisconsin, for example, against collective bargaining for workers. I don't see where we see really targeted against business policies. If anything, I think a lot of the sort of rescue money has gone into corporate sector, for sure, the financial sector. We haven't really seen a lot to help out individuals. So it's hard for me to buy the anti-business line.
Well, no, you said it right. Let's just define our terms. Stock market's done well because of the Fed. Zero interest rates, no carrying costs for inventory, huge ability for corporate America to borrow and leverage that money, even if they're putting bank in Australia, which is giving you 4.5%. There's lots of ways corporate America can make money when it can borrow unlimited amounts at zero interest rates or 25 beeps.
So you don't think growth had something to do with it? I mean,
well,
look,
I'm saying the growth came from the fact that if you're a car dealer, okay, and you could look at this as Ford or whoever you wish. If you don't have to pay interest on your inventory, which used to be at about 10 to 12%, that's part of the growth. I'm not saying it all, but I'm not the guy that's saying anti-business alone. I'm only saying I'm chiming in that I agree. Right. And where does it come from? The huge amounts of regulation, and this not goes to big corporate America. It goes to smaller business, which is what hires people, which gets unemployment down, which basically drums the demand that we know needs to occur in order to get a vibrant economy.
So the Republicans, you're saying, would be more of a pro-business environment, yet their position, at least the position that they speak about, is for massive amounts of spending cuts. How does that equate into a strong economy?
Well, it's different stimulus. The leftist side wants to stimulate by spending, and the right wants to stimulate by giving tax incentives to smaller individuals, small business, let's call it, and corporate America. They want to reduce those taxes. So one is a supply sider, one is a Keynesian. This argument has been going on for a long, long time. The point is, is that when you have unknowns in the marketplace, like you have now, and this is talked about, the uncertainty is a word that, I hear it 20 times a day, so it's a boring word. The point is, it is true. When you don't know what your costs are going to be, you tend to be conservative with a small c, and you hold back until you know what costs are going to be and what the rules of the game are going to be. Now, I agree with you that if you start to cut spending drastically, that will have a negative effect. I don't think the Republicans want to do that. I think they want to cut it within reason. Last year they made this deal. I think they cut $38 billion out of a $3.6 trillion budget.
And historically, they haven't been big cutters. Actually, they've been big spenders.
Exactly.
If you look back at the Reagan period, we got the tax cuts and we got an increase in spending. It was a double stimulus.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about the markets. You're a pro. You've been involved for a long time as a trader. Do you see sort of a change in the market environment? Has it become more speculative, for lack of a better word, more like a casino atmosphere back compared to the days when you started?
Well, the answer is yes, and there are several reasons for this. Number one, in my opinion, I've never seen a more proactive Federal Reserve in what it does to manipulate the markets, and I'll use that word accurately. They don't want the markets to go down. That's why there's no downside. There hasn't been. Every time it goes down, they come up with a new scheme, whether it's QE2 or printing money 2, Operation Twist, dollar swaps. All of this helps the market go up. So they don't want another recession.
How come that didn't work in Japan? Japan has been engaging in quantitative easing for 20 years, basically, and the Japanese market is dead.
I don't think they do it as aggressively as our chairman has. Now, again, I'm not an expert in Japan, so I can't debate the nuances with you. But this chairman is the most proactive chairman in the. I can't remember when. Since I've been in business, since the '60s. So there is no downside. So it's very hard to short and make money unless you trade. So you've got manipulation by the Fed. So there's no downside. So there's no active market. But
does that mean the stock market is a bubble? Is it just being manipulated higher?
The biggest bubble is bonds. Because again, now once interest rates start to have to rise, then you're going to come down a great deal in bonds. The stock market is less of a bubble because it has valuation considerations. Okay, it's relatively cheap historically on a PE basis, but the bond market is a bubble. But neither here nor there. The second point is there's been a lot because the little investor has gone away from the markets, and you notice the volume has dried up to a considerable degree. You've gotten a dominance of professionals who do high-frequency trading, program trading, people like me that are in the marketplace almost every day, and where you've driven out.
Are they making money, or are they just picking each other's pockets?
You do need something to spark that borrowing demand.
What do you think that would be?
Well,
is the economy getting better?
I would again. Now I'm going to be honest and say that I'm somewhat biased to the supply side, but you need to change the mentality of this administration, which is, like as I say, looked at by many people. I'm the one saying it. It's their anti-business. So if you change administrations and you got a more supply side balance, now yes, if they start to cut like Europe and you get that kind of austerity, then all bets are off. The assumption is they're not going to do that. They're going to cut gradually over time in very small increments relative to GDP and relative to the debt. And they're going to influence more with tax cuts and stimulations to create new businesses, et cetera. So,
all right, so we're going to get a change maybe in 8 months, if not in 4 years and 8 months, one way or another, we're going to get a change.
And one thing I'll say, if you watch the Supreme Court ruling, I think that's going to be a big deal. Because other than the stimulus program in 09 and Dodd-Frank, the president really hasn't done anything. He's done the health care deal for his side of the ledger, for his constituents. If that goes, the likelihood of him losing improves, and that will, psychologically help the markets.
I agree with you. It's going to be a big deal. First time since the 1930s that a law would be overturned by the
Correct.
Supreme Court. Victor Sperandeo, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you,
That's
Victor.
it for now, folks. This is Mike Norman signing off. See you here next time. Bye-bye.